Are you 100% certain about the future of Bitcoin and that it has zero risk? There's no risk that could do anything to it?
I don't think you can state that. No, I think that everything in life has risk. So there's a black swan risk, an unknown, and anybody intellectually honest has to admit that there is that risk. That's not what I would say. What I would say is you've got a bucket of money. Let's come back to Africa. You've got $100,000 in Africa. You've got to invest it in something. You've got to put it into a building, into land, into an African currency, into something else. What are you going to do? There is 100% certainty that you're going to lose 80% of your money in most currencies over the next decade. There's 100% certainty you're going to lose 95% of your wealth over 30 years in just about every currency. And so you have to work through each of these issues and say, what's the cost of doing nothing? What's the cost of not taking a risk? What's the risk-free rate? Well, the risk-free rate is the monetary inflation rate. So the price that you pay to not do something is the rate at which the money is collapsing. If you were a Russian, they just lost 35% of their wealth by not doing anything in the matter of weeks. So in this particular case, you just have to look at the array of options. If you're an investor in South America or Asia or Africa, I would say the risk-free rate is much higher for you, right? Like you're in Lebanon, what are you going to do in Lebanon? How about Afghanistan? How about Iraq, right? What are you going to do? In all those situations, they're thinking maybe I'll trust my money to Tether. You know, Tether's run by Bitfinex. It's just a company. So why is it that people in many countries are more willing to trust a company out of Hong Kong that's running a stable coin on the crypto network than they're willing to trust their local bank? Well, because in fact, Tether is probably a better bet than betting your money on most currencies in the world. Other than the top 12 currencies, the rest are collapsing.
Why do Tether if you can just do the US dollar or USDC?
Well, you can't. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Why do Tether if you could just do the US dollar? Okay, how many people in Africa can walk into a Bank of America in New York City, open an account, and then get the US dollar? None of them. That's the whole point, right? And okay, I did it. I'll give you an example. I put $1 million into Bank of America in Argentina when the dollar was worth 1 peso because I didn't trust the peso. I did it. What do you think happened? The government basically shut down for 1 day. They sent an edict to the bank saying all dollars must be converted back into pesos. Then they went off the dollar peg and they devalued the peso 10 to 1. And I lost 90% of my money. Okay, so why do Tether instead of trust Bank of America in Argentina? You tell me. Right? Because what's the odds that Tether is going to go to zero in the next year? If the odds were 90% your money's going to zero in the next year by putting it somewhere else, then you would think maybe that's a risk I want to take. So, you know, people are forced out the risk curve based upon the monetary policy. And in a hyperinflating economy, in Zimbabwe, right, you're going to take everything you've got, you're going to buy anything. I don't know if you saw, you'll buy toilet paper, you'll buy boxes of cereal, right? You'll buy anything. There's pictures in Turkey, people, and this is this year, people go into a car lot and they buy all the cars. Okay, so here's the news story. The government impounds 54 cars that were bought by a hoarder. Someone had the temerity to actually convert their currency into automobiles because they thought the automobiles would hold their value better than the currency. And then the government seizes their automobiles. Okay, if you look at every single war, right, the war always has the story of the speculators, right? The speculators, the smugglers, and the hoarders. What's your crime? Your crime was not holding your money in the currency, which was losing 90% of its value, but rather deciding to buy too many automobiles. Eventually, Yeah, that all these countries will just inflate their way out, and the currencies collapse, and that's why they're all collapsing, right? That the currencies are weaker today than ever. I think that it's pretty obvious the dollar will also be printed to pay off the debt, and that will just manifest itself in the dollar continuing to lose value against scarce assets. It will gain value. It'll be stronger than the other currencies because they're just collapsing faster. So eventually we'll see a world where there's a dollar in the CNY, right? If you're not a very powerful empire, you can't maintain your currency. And that'll be the medium of exchange, and everything will be pegged to it or correlated to it. And then you're going to see monetary energy flowing out of weak property and weak assets into strong property. Like I would sell all the land I have in Africa and convert to Bitcoin. But I would sell all the land in Africa and I would move it to Europe, and I'd probably sell my land in Europe, move it to the US, and I'd sell my land in the US and move it to Bitcoin. You're just swapping from a weaker thing to a stronger thing. And the definition of weak is a function of what's the risk it'll be seized, taxed, or impaired, right? Regulated, right? So calculate that, right? Will the government, the jurisdiction that your property's in, be seized, confiscated, taxed away, impaired away? And the last issue is will be inflated away. Right? The reason that Bitcoin is magical is because there's only 21 million. I can create more real estate in New York City. I can create more cars. I can create more luxury watches. I can create more gold. I can create more shares of stock. I can create more bonds. I can create any commodity. They're commodities by definition. Given enough money and time, I can create infinite of any of them. Bitcoin is a scarcity. Okay, name another scarcity in the world, right? And technically, it's not clear there is another scarcity, right? A scarcity is something of which it is absolutely capped. If the price goes up by a factor of 1,000 or 1,000,000, it is absolutely capped. That is not the case with gold, soybeans, silver, stock, bonds, real estate, single-family homes, ships, planes, trains, nothing else. Everything else could be manufactured.